All right, let's go, Vishal. We are live, man. Back with another session here, man. Good to see you. And we got our new platform.
Yeah, how are you doing? This looks phenomenal. It looks a lot more clean, yeah?
Yeah, it feels good. I like it much better. Much easier to have like a discussion as opposed to before when we had two cameras and I'm like trying to talk to you over here, but the camera's over there and it's like kind of weird. No, this is good. This is clean.
Yeah,
It's got a recording timer on the top. What's this percentage over on the top left corner, do you know?
I think it's uploading. It's uploading the video that's being recorded real time.
In real time.
Yeah, it's
All right,
recording
well, we'll
4K
we'll
as
check it out.
well.
We'll find out how it does here. So thanks everybody for tuning in. If you guys have been listening to our show all along the way, we got Buttendz Sessionz. I'm Rob from Buttendz. This is Vishal. Vishal, you want to say who you are and where you're tuning in from?
Yeah, I'm a 25-year-old ice hockey player in India, and I've gotten the luxury of traveling around the world and playing in 9 different countries now, and not as many as Rob has, but I'm on the journey here, and Rob's an inspiration, and this is Buttendz Sessionz. We've put this together to bring Rob's experience from being a former professional hockey player to and also the experience that I have of playing hockey in a culturally diverse and also non-hockey playing nation. We bring this together to you, and we're now live with Buttendz Sessionz, the fully upgraded Buttendz Sessionz on a new
This is it,
platform
dude.
here.
We got a nice one. Yeah, I was lucky enough to meet you because of my experience with Buttendz and playing hockey and traveling the world to play hockey to promote the brand. And then I got to know you online, and we, made these crazy ideas of like, someday we'll meet and we'll play in India. And then sure enough, we made it happen, and we've been there a couple times now, and got to skate on the same team together up in the Himalayan mountains. New Delhi Sacred Bulls. We had a great time competing, and then Vishal and I become dear friends, and we've stayed in touch. And we decided it'd be great to start this podcast together as an opportunity to, give back to the hockey community. And we each come from such different backgrounds, but at the end of the day, we're both hockey players, and it's exciting to be able to talk to you and to have this experience and to be able to do this. We live in such a great time. Like, what a time it is to be alive, where I can sit here and talk to you over in India about ice hockey and, have it mean something to people. That's great.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? And isn't it so funny how we met? I came across one of your videos on Instagram and decided to reach out to you with a question that I had. And that time I think I was about 20 and 21, and I was like, "Hey Rob, I'm trying to grow here, and I'm trying to get better as a hockey player." And we reached out. We jumped on live on an Instagram live to do a few Q&As, and what a phenomenal experience it was. And the next thing we knew, I was that you were in India during COVID times. We were playing up in
Oh,
the mountains. It was epic.
those were crazy times, man. Like, what a time it was. COVID year, we flew to India. I remember that. So it was so sick. Remember when we first got there though, and they put me in quarantine in the hotel, and you came by and you delivered things, and like I was stuck in the room. It wouldn't let me leave.
Yeah, but fortunately we got through it soon enough, and then
Yeah,
you
no
took
problem.
another
It was
flight
cake
to.
once we were there.
We're up in Leh all of a sudden, and playing hockey up in the Himalayas on black ice.
Which I have to say to this day is probably, I mean, it's unbelievable to be honest with you, dude. I never would have even dreamed really when I was a kid. I never thought to myself like someday I'm going to be playing hockey in the Himalayan mountains in India. Like never even crossed my mind. But looking back now and to think that like, oh my gosh, like we were able to go to India and play and not only play, but like play on a team and like get to meet all of you guys over there, all the Indian players and like be, part of the community for a little while. It's like literally a dream come true. But it's funny, man, because like I said, like when I was a kid, I never would have like that wasn't something that I had on my bucket list. You know what I mean? But there you go.
Yeah, and what a privilege and what an honor we've all had. And not to mention, we got to witness RoboRob's birth up in the Himalayas. I mean, he was born in India.
Yeah, the robotic one came out on the Indus River.
Lovely.
Come
What a
back from a
beautiful
big
man.
injury, gets rebuilt, reconstructed, half cyborg, half human hockey player, Robo Rob. Hey, also too,
Yeah.
man, I just pitched this idea. I'll tell you and let's see what you think about it. So like, I got Robo Rob, right? Like, we're definitely going to continue to try to build that character out as like my main like alter ego sort of, hockey playing cyborg superhero. I'm actually working on a side project with my mom, who's very creative school teacher, and she and I are actually working on like a children's book, and I want it to be like a Robo Rob themed children's hockey story, like an inspirational book for kids about Robo Rob traveling the world to crazy non-traditional markets and also traditional markets, but like coaching kids and like being a part of the community and like having a book based around it. So that was kind of all because of my experience with you, man. But the idea that I wanted to share with you and I wanted to see what you thought was another character idea was like, I'm trying to think of ways that I can like make videos, because like we can't, I want to comment or maybe even like, let's say I see a video online that I really like, oh, a training video, and I want to show it to my audience. There's got to like, you can't just download the video anymore. We actually got busted for this on Instagram. You can't just share people's content to your channel. You have to like do something original. You have to make it original. So whether it's like, put a green screen and then make a video with like me on the green screen, like showing the video, like that's original. But like I don't want to just be like making green screen videos with just me with like my backwards hat on, like it's kind of lame. But I was thinking about a new character, a bad guy. So RoboRob's a good guy, right? He's a hero. But I was thinking about a bad guy character, and I want to call him Gangster Goalie. Okay, gangster with a Z, goalie. And I'm gonna get like a Jason goalie mask or some sort of mask, goalie mask maybe. And like maybe not the Jason mask, but something OG, something weird. And like cover it up with a hoodie, wear the mask, make the goalie kind of look like a gangster, and that'll be gangster goalie. And I can use gangster goalie to like, you know, maybe take shots at certain content or to comment on other videos or to even just, show as a green screen, whatever. Any ideas? Just to use that to build out a new character. What do you think?
That's a cool idea. That's a
You like
really
gangster
cool
goalie,
idea.
bro?
Yeah, Gangster Goalie with the Z. I love that name too,
Dude,
man.
gangster goalie
Who
with a
thought of-
Z, bro. I think it's a win. I'm excited. So I could just like travel, like 'cause I'm traveling right now, like in my bag. I could keep the mask. So that way, if I see a couple videos I want to make, I just don't want to like. I got to do green screens. I might as well build out a new character, and we're obviously the Buttendz branding and like make it a whole thing. Gangster
That'd
goalie.
be epic.
Yeah,
That'd be
because I was
epic.
like thinking like my buddy Painter and I from Puerto Rico, we're doing a project. We have a side project as well called Double Runners. I'm actually headed over to Puerto Rico tomorrow for a couple of weeks. Heat waves are huge there right now. I'm kicking it with my boy Painter on the beach there, and we got a studio set up, and we're going to be doing some episodes of Double Runners, which is like it's just like an underground sort of side project that I've been working on with my boy Painter from Hockey Puerto Rico, and he's the one who helped me develop RoboRob back in the day when we were during COVID in Puerto Rico, and we're always like talking about like the Puerto Rican gangster culture and like stuff like that. So I was like, oh, gangster goalie, like that'd be kind of sick, bro. Like that's kind of how gangster goalie came about.
So cool. And if you have access to ice, also, have you seen those shooting tarps that you just hang up anywhere, like whether it's on a goalpost, if it's on real
But
ice,
yeah,
or just anywhere? Just like create those shooting tarps and like shoot at them. Like that would be so epic with like the gangster goalie. Oh wow, I
gangster
love.
goalie. We're gonna have to create a character for you, dude. What's gonna be your character, bro? You got to start thinking. Do you have any Indian superhero? Do you have any, like an Indian superhero? Like who did you like idolize or who did you watch when you were a kid? Like I watched Batman, Spider Man. I was into X Men. I like Thundercats cartoon when I was a kid. What did you listen to or consume when you were a young kid growing up in India?
That's
Was it American
interesting.
content, or were you into like American content, or were you into Indian content?
No, it was mostly American content. I never really got to watch a lot of TV growing up because I was always outside, whether I was playing or hanging out with our friends or with the boys or so I've never really watched that much TV. But now that I think of it, there were a couple Indian superheroes, but very cliche, very
Really?
cliche.
Like
They're
knockoff
so
Superman or what?
animated. So what?
Was it like knockoff Superman or what? Like who's popular in India? Was it Bollywood stuff?
Yeah, it's actually knockoff Superman. It was an Indian series, like a TV series, not
Yeah.
a movie. Instead, it was an Indian series. It was called Shaktiman, and which just
Shaktiman?
means powerful man. And it was
Shaktiman
so
might be
funny.
kind of a cool character.
No,
No, no,
absolutely
no, it
not.
already exists. No,
Yeah, no,
you're not gonna wear tights and do that and play hockey with me.
absolutely not. But funny thing is, his costume was very much alike with Superman's, and it was so. He had this cape on. It was red colored, red and yellow colored. The superhero costume. It was so funny. It would fly around in the air, and it was so animated, right? Because this is like 10, 14 years ago that we're talking about, or even more. And so it was so like. I mean, you can imagine like those graphics, right? There's like this guy flying in the air, like the sky's behind. We could almost figure out, and we could almost see that there's like a carpet rolling in the back that had skies printed on it. to show the
Wow.
graphics. It was so funny. It was so funny, bro. But
Oh, that's pretty
yeah,
cool,
most of
man.
the
I've never heard of that character. I've never even seen any. That's why it's funny because I was like talking to him, like I've never actually seen an Indian superhero character, so that's cool. We'll have to put
yeah,
if we talk about this on a clip, maybe put like the pop up of the character so we can reference like what he looks like because like I'm interested to see what
absolutely,
that is. Hey
absolutely.
man, so to change gears on you here, last week we had a good session and we talked about you doing some, getting outside of your comfort zone. And normally you're a player, but this last week you were going to be evaluating players. Talk a little bit about your experience, Dan. I'm interested to hear like how that went.
Yeah, it was my first time evaluating players for Team Maharashtra ice hockey. Maharashtra is a state here in India. It's one of the 29 states in India. And so each year we have this national tournament. I talked about it during the last session also. We have this national tournament where teams from all around the country, as many teams as possible, they come and they play and they gather in a place like Ladakh, for example, Leh Ladakh, where up in the mountains they gather up and they play a tournament, and winner takes home the trophy. That's basically it. And so each state has a team, and so this I represent. Well, I never really got to represent Team Maharashtra, but I live here, so and I've represented Team India. So they got me on there, and they said, hey, you know what? We need the best guys of Team Maharashtra to represent the state, and so they brought me. It was actually so much honor, like because there's all of these authorities from the Sports Authority of India. There's all these like federation from the local regional federation, the Maharashtra Federation, and so players and parents of the players would talk to the association or the federation and the Sports Authority of India, and they would ask for their opinion on things. And what I felt really honored with was all of these questions were then directed to me by these authorities or officials, and yeah, I felt like my
Yeah.
opinion mattered there, and I felt like my voice had a say in those matters, and so that was
Oh,
one
that's
good
cool.
experience. Yeah, that was one good experience, or one good experience transitioning, going from player to being one of the evaluators. That was a great thing. It was another bummer though. We didn't really have ice because the Pune city where I was, it was pretty hot, so there was no ice. We had to do it on roller skates. Like so, we basically did roller hockey tryouts to evaluate players and to guess how they would do on the ice. And so,
Whoa,
it was
dude, that's
really interesting.
crazy, man. So what were some of the things that you looked for as an evaluator to that things that would translate to ice?
Yeah. Well, most of the players they'd already played ice hockey at a national level, like because
Yeah.
it happens every year. So most of the players that made it to the team had already played a national tournament or a national level tournament
Also, you had
before.
like a
And
previous
so
book, a body of work that you could evaluate them on, and this is just sort of like show up and like formality or what?
not a formality per se, but like let's say the team were to be done for well, there was a team would consist of 20 players in total, and so like 14 or 15 of the players of the 40 or 50 players that showed up for the tryouts had already played at a national tournament before this year, and
Yeah.
so those 14, 15 players just had to make the team. That's for sure. That was a formality for them, kind of. But then the last like 5 or 6 players had to be selected out of like let's say 40 or 50 players,
Well,
something
that's
like that.
tough.
Right?
So, what were you specifically looking for to target, like to find those five players out of 50? Like, were you just like looking at overall skills, athletic ability, swagger? Like, what would you use to evaluate?
Swagger, not so much as I would
Aura,
like, but
aura.
aura. Oh my god, no, it was mostly just like how they're able to skate and then understand where to be, where not to be, and stuff like kind of like positions and a
Yeah.
little bit of skill also. I know like roller hockey is really different from ice hockey in terms of the puck movement also, because the friction and the puck moves very much differently, and so
Of
I
course.
didn't really focus much on stick handling and all of that stuff, but also, but I focused rather on where the players are moving, what positions they're holding, and if they understand the game sense. And one big thing that I noticed was how much or how well the players are communicating with each other while
Oh
they're
yeah, that's
inside the
huge.
ring. Yeah, that's big. And also how they're carrying the team morale, right? Like if like we did like a scrimmage, for example, one team's losing and the other team's up by like a couple goals. How are the other players reacting to that kind of situation? Because it's common for players to be in those situations in a game. And so you would want to be the player who boosts the other players up and to motivate the other players, right? So that we could come back into the game and whatnot. And so those are the some factors I was looking at.
Dude, that's
You know,
really interesting. I'm wondering, the first thing that comes to mind is like, how easy is it for you to identify players who have a positive mindset, or necessarily, is it body language? What are you looking for? If a player's losing, like, how easy is it for you to identify that quality as an evaluator, did you think?
I think it was fairly easy for me because I was inside the rink myself, and I was talking to the players almost on a one-on-one basis.
Yeah.
And so there were times where I was explaining the drills, and I was telling them what they had to do to at different timelines and whatnot. And so how players were listening to me, how actively they were reacting to it, and how actively people were engaging with me, asking me questions, and then if a player is asking me a question, how are the other players reacting to that? Are they listening? Are they paying attention? And all of that. That's just like the prerequisite. Once all of those things are checked, then I look at how they're actually performing the drill. If they had listened to it correctly, they would obviously be able to perform the drill correctly. So stuff like that. So it was fairly easy. I mean, there was this one player on the ice, or inside the rink, sorry, fairly decent skater, fairly decent with positioning, but I had to cut him off the list because he had a bad attitude on the inside the rink. He
What kind
just
of things did
felt
you
like,
notice what kind of things did you notice that would qualify him, or that made you think that he had a bad attitude?
oh, that's a good question actually. I mean, he had this like arrogant attitude that told me, "Hey, you know what? It's fine. Like whatever you're showing me, I've done this before. I know what to do. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm just going to go do my thing." And so that's one thing that I did not like. And because of him, because of his attitude that way, all the other players were affected, and I could see that because before those reactions, players were listening to me in an appropriate manner. They were listening to me. They were paying attention to me. And then all of a sudden, after this attitude shift from just one player, I would say probably about five or six guys were not behaving as well as you'd like them to, and not listening to me as much as I would like them to listen to. So I feel like it plays a huge role how a teammate is reacting inside the rink and outside the rink even. And so those were the things that told me that he was not a good fit for the team, and especially in a place like Maharashtra or in a place like India or even outside, I would say, where it's not the talent that matters the most, it's also the mentality, and it's also the teamwork, it's also the leadership quality that matters a lot more, right? And so I just wanted to set the examples right. Hey, if you behave a certain way, that's going to impact on whether or not you get to play and at what level you get to play at, you know? And so he got the message fairly well, and I think I was a little bit harsh on him, but I did. I mean, to be fair, I did give him a couple warnings. I was like, I pulled him aside and I was like, hey, I'm here to evaluate you guys. I'm not just looking at your performance. I'm also looking at how you're behaving, what your attitude is like, and how you're reacting to things that happen inside and outside the rink. And he still kept on with that attitude. So I was like, okay,
Yeah. Gas him.
maybe that's a hard stop. Maybe that's a hard stop.
Did you did you enjoy yourself? Like, did you feel like you were in a good position, like doing what you did, like being a coach or being an evaluator?
I did enjoy being an evaluator because I feel like it was fairly easy to select the guys. I know as high up in the level I go, it's I mean it gets more difficult, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but I guess it was how easy this was, and also the kind of honor I felt, and also the kind of respect I got from all of the players, all of the parents of the players, and all of the sports authority officials and whatnot. I think that all made it enjoyable, and that made it fun, and I think I enjoyed it fairly well.
Oh, that's cool, man. I'm excited to see what transpires with the team. Are you going to be involved further with the guys, or are you done now? Like, are you going to coach or
No,
what?
it was just the evaluation, and then they're off to play on the 18th. I mean, they're off to fly to Leh on the 18th, and then they practice for a few days, and then the tournament starts on the 3rd.
Ooh, dude,
They're
tournament in
only,
Lay. I miss those days. Late
I know,
Jan.
and they've actually increased the barn also. Like, there's a roof
I know.
now.
I
There's
saw the
more
renovation, man. It looked unbelievable.
It was crazy. Hey, speaking of, by the way, have you ever gotten a chance to evaluate players or well, you coach players at the Buttendz camp, right? Hot ends.
Yeah, not at the level that you were just describing for some sort of national team or anything like that. I've been involved in some tryouts and like at the lower level, at the minor, at the pee wee level, for example, like some of my buddies like who coach, and I've been asked opinions about players, and so it's important. In hockey, the hockey community is very small, even especially well, even in the United States and in Canada. You're one phone call away from finding a buddy who knows a guy. Like, hey, I'm finding out like what's up with this player. Like my one buddy, for example, Brendan Clark used to be a scout for the New York Rangers, and like he literally would ask me about guys, or I vice versa would ask him about players, and like he had notes on guys from the East Coast because they were evaluating guys from a very young age at the NHL level, and you could find out a lot. So it's like I guess really important to build off what you were saying that like as a young player, if you're a young player and you happen to see this video or you're watching this, your body language and your effort and like the way that you carry yourself to and from the rink is as important as how good of a player you are and how much skill you have. So it's also something that you can practice and you can get better at. It's not something that's just going to be like everyone is just got good body language. Like it stinks when you're losing or things aren't going your way on the ice, or for example, you miss the net a couple times on shots. Like you see guys slam their sticks and like it that kind of stuff. It's so noticeable when you're like not on the ice. Let's say you're watching from the stands, a player banging his stick on the ice after missing a goal or missing a net, like making a mistake or whatever. It draws all the attention, and you're like, who's that? Like, who's that guy complaining? Who's that guy having a problem and an attitude? Like, so just something to think about that, like you said, you're evaluating, and one of the things you're looking for is like attitude, team spirit, and body language and things like that. So that's cool, man. I think it's exciting, and thanks for sharing that tidbit of information. Like, you've seen hockey in North America. What would you say is the biggest difference between the Indian player and the North American hockey player, like in your opinion?
That's a very good question. I'm gonna have to think about that for a second. What's the difference between and player
Like,
in
what's
North
the most?
America?
What would you say is just the most? Well, maybe not even the player, but like, what would you say is the most glaring difference between the hockey that is played that you've seen in North America compared to hockey in India?
It's much more competitive. It's much faster in America, and plus, it's also very smart. It's a lot smarter in America. I'm sure because the North American kids have more access to, or they have easier access to hockey, like
Yeah,
professional
yeah. It's
hockey.
not like a number
They
one
watch,
sport in India, right? Like it's a very, very niche thing
yes.
to be involved in, except for if you're up in Leh, right? Like most of the people up in Leh, it seems like are hockey players, but that's a small community.
It's a small community, but also they don't have access to like professional hockey all around the year, right? Or even for months of a year, or for several months a year. They get to watch. I would say most of the players, like I would say 99% of the players in India, they
Yeah,
only get to watch as much hockey as they see on Instagram clips,
yeah.
like 40-second highlight clips. That's
Which is
that's
also kind of cool because back in like let's say 15 years ago, those players had no access, right? Only what's on TV, which is
absolutely
barely anything. Because like I remember I talked to Mustu and I remember he told me Mustu was telling me like he learned how to play hockey from watching Sean Walker from I Train Hockey YouTube
playing
videos, and
hockey.
I'm like, wow, dude, that's sick. And Sean Walker's his videos are awesome. So it shows you, the impact that like the internet's having on communities like yours, where players can learn the game and be smarter and like catch up to the North American player essentially.
Yeah, and one of the greater things also is one of the funny things also is we compared North American hockey players to Indian hockey players. The one big difference is Indian players watch as much as these North American coaches or these hockey idols, I would say, post on their social media channels. And whereas North American hockey kids, they have like one-to-one access to these guys. Like I have a few more examples also. So you know about Coach Jeremy from How to Hockey.
Yeah.
There's another hockey player from the UK, I believe. The YouTube channel is called Hockey Tutorial. There's Pavel Barber. They're like internet sensations because I mean, even myself, we've watched these guys. Like they used to teach like little stick handling basics on YouTube, and that's what we've watched while we were growing up. And again, on the other hand, there's North American hockey players or players from Europe. They have one-to-one access to these coaches and to these internet sensations, and so that's phenomenal. I guess that's where the big difference is also. Yeah, so I guess the big difference is fast. It's much smarter and it's much more competitive. because it belongs there. I mean, ice hockey came from there, and I guess in a few years, hopefully, not in a few years, maybe a decade or so, we'll get there as well.
I'll tell you what, if there's one thing though, from my experience, that the Indian player has an advantage of over, let's say, North American player, well, especially from Leh, is competing at that altitude, man. Like you can't put a like you are in some serious shape if you're skating up and down the ice at 12, what is it, 12,500 in the Himalayan mountains. Like you go up and down the ice one time and you are like, for me, I was gassed. So like those Indian players, like can skate for days, man, up and down the ice, and like that's a huge advantage though. You got to think about that.
Yeah, I remember when I first when it was my first time up in Lake, because that's the first time I was in any place that cold, and
Yeah.
also in any place that high, right? And first time I go for 3 days, I didn't even get out of bed. Like I just couldn't, because like as soon as I'd get out of bed, I'd just start, I'd just start feeling dizzy.
Oh my gosh, dude! I remember being so tired the first couple sessions up there, man.
God. And the first session, I was just 20 seconds. That was the longest shift I could go. But then I got better eventually, and now I could go like a couple of shifts, I guess, without gassing it. It's fine now. But those players up in Leh, man, those locals, wow, they could play the entire game without even subbing out. Like that's crazy.
I know it was quite impressive, man, and I was impressed with the competition level. Like we didn't, we played some good teams when we were in New Delhi, and I remember being at the game that you played in the final. I can't remember if it was Indian Army versus I can't remember who. Oh,
Skara?
was it Skara?
Yeah, Skara.
The
We
snowstorms,
played
yeah,
Skara.
dude. Skara snowstorms versus the Indian Army, and the place was jam packed. Couple thousand fans in the building going absolutely berserk. I was so excited for you. I was excited to be there as a spectator. I was itching to get on the ice with you, but man, was it cool to be there watching you battle in front of all those fans. I think you played in front of more people that day than I ever played in front of my whole life playing hockey in North America. So that in itself is a really fun experience to hang your hat on.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine like these guys. I mean, well, myself included. I got to play like that for 4 years in a row. I've taken a break this year. Hey, but coming back to the attitude during the tryouts, as a young player, if someone's listening, what could they do to start? Because I mean, everything starts at home, right? Habits change everything. What could a young player start to do today to improve their attitude on the ice?
I think that's a good question, man. I mean, I think it's like I said, it's something that you can practice, something that you can learn. Like the first thing I would do would be try to find somebody that plays the game that you can look up to. Like if you have like a hero or somebody that plays in the NHL, that carries themselves a certain way, like start to look at some of the way those guys behave. You know what I mean? That would be a good start. And then I think just being honest with yourself, like look at how you are like during the game, like try to like analyze your own game as well. Like when you know if you're playing well, if you're not feeling it, if you're not having a great game, start to then extrapolate out a little bit and think like how am I action, how am I behaving, like if I miss the net, am I banging my stick, am I screaming, am I swearing, am I talking bad about my teammates. Like just start to like pay attention to yourself and like really evaluate and be honest with your own game. And I think you'll see it real quick, like even myself now, and I'm not perfect, man. Like I still to this day, like I'll go on the ice and I'll try to do stuff that's cool. And if I miss the net, like I'll find myself like banging my stick or, swearing. And I'm like, oh man, like that's not it. That's not the way I should be behaving. Because again, like if you're negative with yourself, it's going to breed more negativity and it's going to breed, negative results. Whereas if you're positive with yourself, even in negative situations, like if you make a bad play and you stay positive, it's going to actually you're going to be going in the positive direction and it's going to turn itself around. So I'm a firm believer in that. So even myself to this day, I'm trying to work on it. But if you're a young player, you can do the same thing. Analyze yourself at the rink and just make sure that you're trying to be uplifting, be positive. And if you find yourself being negative, then you got to cut that out of your game ASAP because other people are going to see it if you can identify it. So it's important.
Oh yeah, one thing we mentioned earlier was that when you're watching the game from up far, from bird's eye view, you could see everything. That's the one thing that I also realized because sometimes you like back check and you think, oh hey, I might not be getting noticed because there's I mean rink is huge and you're back checking in one corner, but like let me
It's
tell you,
glaring.
it's yeah, you can see everything from up there. So
I
that's
have an
pretty good.
interesting story from something that stuck with me from when I was a player, and like I was trying out for junior camps, and I didn't have success at those camps. I got cut from all the junior A camps I tried out for in the North American and the USHL, And it was disappointing, but there were some positives I took away from it. And one of them was I was in Dubuque. I already mentioned my boy Brendan Clark on the call on the session, but his father was a director of player personnel for New York Rangers, and like he was a big wig in like some of the NHL teams. He was at the camp with Dubuque, and I remember he commented to my father that he liked the way that I like sat on the boards, like waiting to go out, waiting for my next shift. Like I was like excited to be on the ice. Like I couldn't wait to get out there. And it was like he noticed that as like I like the way he sits on the bench, sits on the boards, waiting, excited, looking, following the play, waiting to jump on the ice and get into the play. And I was like, whoa, like I can't believe like somebody noticed like my attitude about wanting to get on the ice. It was a thing that like the NHL scout saw. And I was like, that's really important to remember. And I always thought about that everywhere I ever went. I was always like a player who like, I was excited and I was hoping that people would see that, and they did. They noticed it. So just a little thing, just for somebody that might be, to think about in your own game, that like, how you're sitting on the bench, you might think that it's not important, but someone is, paying attention to all these little details. So try to, iron that out in your own game, and you'll have success.
Absolutely. And now that you spoke about watching players as idols, who was your biggest idol when you were growing up?
Oh, that's easy, man. My biggest idol. Hang on, motorcycle. Did you hear that? Okay, sorry, man. So yeah, my biggest idol growing up was Timu Solani. So I love the Finnish Flash, but my father used to work for a Finnish cheese company called Finlandia Cheese. You might have seen the cheese in the grocery store. That was my dad's company. They are a company based in Finland, and they used to sponsor Timu when he came into the league. And obviously, Timu was like superstar. I remember I was like 12 or 13 years old, and my father had this opportunity to go out to dinner with Timu Solani in Boston as a sales thing. Like he brought clients to the game, and like big wigs that wanted trying to sell cheese to or whatever. And they brought Timu, and we all had dinner together in Boston the night before the game, and then we went to the Bruins. I think it was on when he was on the Ducks, so Bruins Ducks the following night. And just being in the room, watching how Timu Solani carried himself and the way he treated everybody, and the way he treated, like honestly, the way he treated my father, like made my father like my hero after this. Like he was able to like get me out to dinner with like this NHL superstar who's like in his prime. And ever since, like after that, like I love Timu, like no matter what, like anything he's ever done. So, and also he's known for what's Timu known for? Obviously, he's known for scoring goals, but he's really known for his attitude and the way that he carried himself at the rink, and the way that he carried himself in the media, and his personal life. It always shined through, and everybody always talked about what a great guy Timu was. And I got to see it firsthand as a kid, as a 12-year-old. How to handle yourself at a dinner with a bunch of people, and I was just like, after that, he was my hero.
Wow, no wonder. What a great impact he's caused here. Lovely.
Yeah. So, shouts to my man.
Awesome, man. What a wonderful chat today, man. Great session.
I think we're there, dude. I think we did it. We got our new platform going, Buttendz Sessionz. Another one in the books. I'm looking forward to the build out here, man. It's going to be exciting. We got some good clips here. Hope you guys got some value out of that. Vishal, great. Thanks a lot for doing this with me. I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Buttendz Sessionz coming to you live from Costa Rica and
India.
And India. Here we go. We'll see you next week. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you guys. See you in a week.
Thanks, Rob.
All right. Later, Vishal.